On fait un peu ce qu'on voulait faire pour... ça reste entre nous...
reverse.
Un peu le reverse, mais en mix. T'as pas l'air convexe.
si. Thank you for being here. We are on another episode of Another Day in Paradise, as you can see, hopefully.
Yeah.
So today we decided to talk about podcasts.
Exactly.
And so we decided to talk about that because we just want to explain how I started the podcast and how I started the adventure of doing podcasts.
Podcasts,
yes. So we will talk about it. So I guess I'll start,
cool.
if you don't mind.
Of course.
So I started by having this idea of making a podcast a long time ago. I was always consuming a lot of podcasts, and I decided to. I was clearly inspired by Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And the reason why I was inspired by him, I think he's a cool guy and everything, but I'm not usually I don't get starstruck by anybody. Like, I don't really follow, like, I'm not a big fan of any celebrity, and I follow their stats, etc., etc. But I really enjoyed the format. The format was something that I thought I could maybe do at my level, of course. The format is very clear. The format is just talking to interesting people.
Yeah.
And the interesting people are sometimes famous and sometimes not famous. And guess I have access to not famous people.
But
so
interesting nonetheless.
Exactly.
What's interesting with the Joe Rogan model is that you have this guy that was like a fighter and stuff.
Yeah.
So most people that do podcasts are kind of like niche into their,
Field.
Their field and stuff. But what was interesting with Joe Rogan is that he had like so many different. It was more about the people that he brought in.
Yeah.
And just getting to know interesting people, and I think that's kind of like the approach that we find in two of your podcasts. Actually.
Yeah, I actually have 3 podcasts in total. So the big idea, the big question that I had at the beginning was, what language should I have the podcast with? And here is my story in a nutshell. So I was born in Morocco, obviously, but I also had the opportunity and clearly the great opportunity to travel and to live in the United States for 12 years. And I went there for school. I had a bachelor degree, a master's degree, and I opened a business. I did a lot of things. So I lived there 12 years. So, and I went there, I was 19. I came back in my early 30s. So I grew up there. I was an adult there.
Yeah, like your main years that forged your personality and stuff.
Exactly. So I left here. I was a teenager. I had a lot of freedom. My parents are really cool. But I really had the opportunity to experience life away from my parents and my family in the United States. So English is part of who I am. But I'm not, as you guys can see, I'm not like an expert in the language. I mean, I'm still learning English as I'm learning all languages. But so it's not exactly my mother tongue, but this is also my strong suit because I think in English. I consume a lot of English culture, movies, music, etc., just like everybody, I guess. I also speak French. So French is really, I would say, the language where I feel the most comfortable. And for people who don't know, Morocco is in North Africa, and we mainly speak Arabic. So when we say Arabic, people think that all Arab countries speak the same Arabic. We don't.
We definitely don't.
We don't. Sometimes in the US, people were like, "Oh, you're from Morocco. You speak Arabic."
Yeah.
Oh, I want to introduce you to my friend. Okay, all right, great. He speaks Arabic too. I'm like, this is not gonna go well. And then they introduce you to an Egyptian, and he's like, "Kifak habibi," and you're like, all right. Let me tell you. And when he sees me, he's like, "Yeah, where are you from?" And we start speaking English, and they're like, why don't you speak Arabic? Well, here it is, dum dum. We don't speak the same Arabic.
Yeah, it's
There is the classical Arabic that we use for formal things, for the news, for writing, etc., etc. And there is the dialect, and the dialects are sometimes close, like Egyptian and Lebanese dialect is pretty close. Moroccan and Algerian Lebanese and Algerian Arabic are close, but a Moroccan is gonna have a hard time understanding Algerian, like Tunisian or even like Lebanese, etc. So we don't speak the same Arabic. If he writes Arabic, I can read it, and if I write Arabic, we write classical Arabic. So, anyways, so I was like, okay, what language should I use? Which one am I the most comfortable with? And again, the language will determine your audience. So who do you want to talk to? And I am bicultural in a way because I speak English, but I also lived in America for a long time, and I speak French and Arabic because I lived in Morocco for the 2/3 of my life and 1/3 in the US. So,
well, you wanted the podcast to represent you on
Exactly.
every level. So, so you have Another Day in Paradise.
Another Day in Paradise,
which is your,
in English, of course.
Podcast in English.
And I have Ça reste entre nous, which is a podcast in French, and it's the same principle. Like
Which I've never been on yet.
You have not?
No.
Oh, well, maybe we should do
We
it.
should do one.
We should do one, definitely.
Definitely.
Okay, so maybe the next one is going to be Red Us, so stay tuned. We will post all the
Maybe.
links. Maybe we'll
see the
post all the
contracts,
links.
all that.
Exactly. Well, and remember, I only invite interesting people, so maybe
But
we
you,
have to
by
talk.
the way, you also have a very fun podcast on football.
Yes, on soccer for Americans.
Yeah.
So,
Football.
yeah, well, we
For
play
the
with
world.
feet. So, yeah, it makes more sense to say football. And you know the story behind that one because you accompanied me with during the whole adventure in the beginning of that.
Yeah. It
so
was really fun.
it is fun.
And it's still very fun.
It is fun. I think I have fun in all my podcasts, but in very different ways. In my soccer, it's called Le Foutoir. It's a big group podcast, and we have a lot of fun. We share a lot of ideas, and every time I say we try to record every Sunday, to shoot every Sunday, and we post every Tuesday. So, and every Sunday I'm like in the group, okay, who's in? And like in. I like there's almost never like a lack of people to participate, and which is funny because at the beginning I was looking for interesting people to talk about cool things. And many people here in Morocco and in Europe and in everywhere besides America, well, America is getting there, they are big fans of soccer. And they're like, oh, you should invite me. I want to talk about soccer.
Yeah.
And then I said, yeah, but if I talk about soccer, then so many people would want to talk about this. And you know what? They said, well, let's make a podcast about football. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I would love that, but I'm really not good at it. I play soccer very often. I used to. Now I'm kind of
I thought
injured.
you were going to say very well.
Well, that's the thing. I'm really horrible at it.
No.
I'm not.
You're getting.
I have a lot of fun. I'm a solid guy. Like I try not to lose the ball, pass it, etc., etc. But I will never try something crazy. But some of the guys who play with us are really, really good. Which,
definitely.
Which is interesting. The mix is interesting. And I told the guys, listen, you do it. I will mix for you. I will create the podcast. I will do the logo. I will do because what people need to realize is when you do a podcast, if you want to do everything, you have to know your way around design because you need to design your logo. You need to cut things to fit inside, like all the little things, like for the icons and etc. for YouTube, etc. So you have to know your way around. And I love to make my logos because I'm a designer by trade, I guess. And this it mixes a lot of skills, right?
But it's quite interesting because, first of all, you have 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
That are most of them, I would say, I think one is every week. And the others are every other week. Maybe sometimes you skip one of two or two because it's a bit harder to find people that speak English or things like that. But what's impressive is that everything is done by yourself.
Yeah.
So like the editing, the design, all of that stuff, the equipment, all of that stuff, and it's not even your main activity.
Yeah, and I have a full-time job, which, but it's really a passion. So I do the editing myself. I do the design for the logos and everything myself. And the thing is, the editing, I was taught editing because I went to school for graphic design. So, and I went for a master's degree in media studies. So when I did my master's degree, we did some Final Cut Pro, which is the top of the line, like the professional software, etc.
Yeah,
So
of course.
there are a lot of people tell me, oh, there is this software, it's magic, film magic, blah blah.
Yeah,
You
that
just enter
does
it and it does
everything,
everything for you.
yourself.
I don't know how to use that. I know how to use the professional one, and maybe because it gives me all the options, and the other one is pretty cool, but
I think when you don't have that much, like it's already time consuming. So if you, it's kind of
I don't
hard
have time to
take,
learn another one.
Even if maybe at some point you might win sometime.
Yeah,
but I get it. I get sometimes you're good in your comfort zone.
And this one does everything. So I don't want to go into like a project and then hit a wall, because this is just the free version, and if you want the paid version, you got to do this. I already have the professional version. It's very expensive. I have it on my computer. I know how to use it. I don't think twice. I just go ahead and use it. So having 3 podcasts is interesting. And you know what was the biggest challenge? Is that, believe it or not, I have 3 podcasts, and I'm a pretty shy guy. I don't really like to put myself forward. And this is at the antipode of like being shy. Like, okay, you're shy, and you're like
you're putting yourself out there.
and
like
you're like, you have
week
lights and you have
stuff,
cameras, etc. It's how do you because you are pretty shy too. You don't
I'm not the most outgoing person, but
so how do you?
I don't know, man. I did the first podcast was quite an experience, because like you're very much aware that there's a camera. You're very much aware that there's like you need to pay a lot of attention on the way you speak, the way you sit, the way you, but after, I don't know, like a few minutes, you get into the conversation and things like that. And actually the whole experience is quite fascinating.
It's addictive, right?
It's really addictive.
It is addictive.
It is.
It's hard to explain.
And it's
hard
not
to explain.
even about watching them afterwards or anything. I don't know. It's just, like you force yourself to be in an environment with people, usually interesting people, have an interesting conversation.
And you squeeze your brain. Like, it's interesting.
And
you force yourself to have interesting conversation,
exactly,
which is fun.
And like it's you're just putting yourself in an environment that can only lead to value creation and exchange of valuable ideas and things like that, which is I think what we're all looking for in general when we try to have like any type of communication or relationships or whatever. So
most of the times when I sometimes see my guests before I do the Ça reste entre nous, the French one, I meet them at Starbucks in front of my house.
Right.
Yeah, I live in a very fancy place. So, so I go there and we have a talk. And then I say, all right, you ready to do the podcast? And they're like, wait. So what is the podcast? How is it going to go? I said, this conversation that we just had here in the cafe, we will have the same one 200 meters away. It's the exact same thing. I want you to be relaxed. You can ask me questions. I can ask you questions.
Can we stop
Let's just have a conversation.
Yeah,
and they're like, all right, cool. And, like, I like when people say, oh, you're the studio. This is the room where I work most of the day. So I work here easily 8 hours a day. And I also do podcasts in this room. So this is my man cave per se.
Yeah.
And I have a little couch, and I have I try to set it up as a studio. I try to do like the things to capture the sound, so the sound doesn't echo,
one of the things that is impressive, especially for someone that started I think without like premeditating, like I want to become the number one podcast in this, is the equipment. You just one day you woke up and like ordered like a bunch of professional equipment.
That's true. I always wanted to have like a good equipment, professional equipment, but not necessarily the most expensive ones. Let me give you a quick example. These mics are awesome. Rode pod mics. They are really, really good.
Yeah, I saw a lot of podcasts actually
Using them.
Using them, yeah.
Before that, they used the Shure SMB7 or something like that.
Yeah,
think
I
it's the
know
SMB.
exactly what he's talking about.
Anyways, I will put a picture here. Okay, now it's extra work. I will put a picture of it. It's what everybody used. Now and it's $400. And I was like, that stinks. I mean, $400, that's too much. Now,
Yeah,
these
times
are
four.
$100.
Really?
Yeah. And they are heavy duty and they are really good. So
It's crazy. Like I would think they were more expensive.
more expensive, that's good because they are really, really heavy duty. Like a bus can run over these and nothing would happen to them. They are very heavy duty. They are really cool. So with internet, you can do so much research. I mean, of course, you have to know a little bit, but you do a lot of research. And you can start from ground up, from zero, and learn from what is a microphone, what is a condenser, what is a this, what is that.
But usually people tend to start, with in front of their laptop or computer,
Which
with
is
with
fine,
small
which
mic
is
and stuff
absolutely
like
fine.
that. And you just decided, okay, I'm gonna go and do podcasts.
Well,
Like,
yeah, but I didn't go for the top of the line right away. If you remember, the lights that I had were like
no, of
busted
course,
up
there's
lights,
been,
etc. There's been like sometimes
a
I try
growth
to take some
process.
shortcuts, and then I'm like any shortcut,
But
like
what I mean is, like, you had that, you were sure of your passion before even starting.
exactly. And the
And
reason
that's-
to show that I was sure is that I invested some big
Exactly,
bucks.
exactly.
So, and there is I told you about a girl who wants to. You can vape. That's fine.
No, no.
Okay. So I was for permission. This girl I told you about, her. She saw I did a podcast with one of her friend, and he told her, oh, you can contact him because she wants to start doing podcasts, etc. And one of the biggest advice that I got was online, not directly to me, but just start with your phone.
Well, I think it's kind of like a universal. It's the best advice ever.
Actually, just start.
Just start doing. What can you lose? You might do it better.
Yeah.
Before, but at least you have, first of all, the experience.
Exactly.
Before,
Exactly.
and who knows? You might have won 1, 2, 3.
All right, guys. Just a quick break here. If you enjoyed this video and if you want to show your support, please don't forget to subscribe, to like, to comment, tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you so much. Back to the video.
3 subscribers for.
Exactly. And
it's
like
not,
you gain the experience, because if you decide to start and you expect the perfection before you start, in 6 months you will be still building up the setup. But in the meantime, the other guy who will just start with a busted phone,
Exactly.
he has 6 months experience
Exactly.
on you. And you can work on the theory, but you can work on the practical part of it. And the practical part of it is to make mistakes, etc. When I look at the first podcast, the lighting was horrible. I mean, the microphone, the sound was always good because I had really, really good equipment. But the light
gets a bit better every time.
Exactly.
Because you watch, you kind of like, you have the product that you're delivering. You can like analyze it, see, okay, oh, I should not leave my this hanging around in the background. I should be careful with this light, and this light gives this effect.
And you learn a lot about lights, for example. I struggled a lot with lights. I thought, boom, boom, you just put 2 light spots and boom, it's done. There is a lot of work and there is a lot of trial and error. And the other thing that I would recommend for people who wanna start a podcast is there is no one set of perfect equipment. It's whatever you choose, whatever the lighting. There is no science behind it. It's whatever effect you think is cool. Like if you think blue lights behind you is cool, do it. If you think just like very neutral, like a clinic, like a hospital light is good, do it. If you want to have like a very like romantic kind of light, just do it.
Come on.
No, but so for example, let me give you an example. For the cameras, many people are using the SLR cameras, etc., the Canon, etc. The one I'm using is the GoPro, and when I looked online, not a lot of people use GoPro, but for me, it's a risk that I took. It's a choice that I have because my GoPros, I have 2 of them, and they are very versatile. and the quality is good enough for me. I mean, of course, with the SLRs, you have the depth of field, and you can have a blurry background, etc. They zoom in, they do a lot of things. I mean, I'm not really saving money, but this I can take for the foutoir and go outside. I can drop in water.
I can in
the car, etc.
Things like that. So it's
the versatility. So just choose what's good for you and get started.
And the podcast is like, I guess anything you do in life is always a work in process. There's always room for improvement. So yeah, I think starting is the most important.
It's the hardest part, too. It's the hardest part. And of course, many people like myself, they are like, yeah, I want to do it, but I don't want to be famous. Trust me, you will not be famous. You will not.
If you're famous, you'll be for the right reasons.
Yeah, but it will take a long time to be famous unless you do something really crazy and you go viral. It's very hard. I mean, the thing that I realized after not so many podcasts, so in total, maybe I did like 50 podcasts. And it takes time to get traction. It takes a lot of time. It takes passion. So if you do it for the wrong reasons,
of course,
a lot of people will drop out.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to do it for the right reasons. You have to have fun all the time. If you don't have fun, you will not be able to reach a level where you will start making money. And by the way, and you can verify what I'm saying, but I'm pretty sure that if you have less, you need at least 1,000 subscribers to start being considered to start monetizing. So it's tough. It's very tough unless you do things that are crazy, like fake pranks and fake this, fake that. So this is not the what I want to do. I'm really patient. To be honest, do I want to make money on YouTube? Yeah, sure, why not? But it's very slow process, and I'm fine with it.
But it's not like the main
not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, it feels good when you have a video that hits 50 views and you're like, wow, 50. Well, that's nothing compared to people who do millions. But for me to have 50 people watching me, that's pretty cool. I mean, granted, most of them are my family, my friends, people I send them the link directly, etc.
Well, but it's a bit more than 50 now.
Of course.
And it grows every episode, and that's very interesting. But I wanted to ask you one question.
Yeah, sure.
Because a couple of months ago, we had a discussion, and you said something very specific, is that all your podcasts are recorded and never, like edited or to take off stuff or like you always kind of have like this moral contract with people that you bring in that once we do the episode, it airs the way it is.
That's it. Yeah, and we don't do any heavy editing. Like we don't try to make you look good or make you look bad.
It's just like a normal conversation, and whatever happens, happens.
And you know what? Believe it or not, it makes people more comfortable. It's we are shooting in live setting. Like, of course, we are not live, but whatever you say, if you scratch your head, if you receive a phone call, if you there is an interruption, fine, we'll keep it. And I think it makes you feel more comfortable, because if you don't do that, you will try to edit and reach perfection. And perfection is sometimes what destroys people. You know, they say the perfect is the enemy of good. It's true, because when you try to reach perfection, then you will always be frustrated. So what I tell people, just relax. If you receive a phone call, you receive a phone call. Of course, don't take it if you can. But I mean, if you
1 second,
excuse me, yeah, Rashid.
Yeah.
So, but you know, like,
but do you know, like, maybe I'm putting you on the spot. I hope, and if you're not comfortable,
I'll edit it.
You saw how I switched the roles right there.
Exactly.
What would you say is your best and worst experiences since you started the podcast? Like with
that's a good question.
What were like
I'm not gonna say which podcast.
No, of course.
But I had one very first podcast that.
Are you talking about the best or the worst?
The worst.
Okay.
That never seen the light of day, because we recorded with this person. And at that time I started Ça reste entre nous with a good friend of mine, and I Youssef, and I wish him well. But we had some artistic differences, and we parted ways. But the first podcast I did with Youssef and this person, we did the podcast, and then she realized that she came with the expectations to do promo.
Okay.
She started like a healthy juices nutritionist, how do you call it, life coach kind of thing. And when she came here, I challenged her on few things, not her personally, but
Like her
this
field.
life coaching.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
life coaching? I think if you are not trained properly as a psychologist, you should not be a life coach, or maybe
you had like
I had just like,
questions
but
that
very like
everyone would have.
my question is not to put her on the spot. My thing was to help her explain what people say. This is what people
Yeah.
say. What do you respond to that? And
'Cause
it
you
was
kind
an
of
opportunity
represent
for her to shine. Yeah.
what everyone
And
thinks,
she
yeah.
responded really well. But at the end, she said, she didn't tell me. She said, what would be great? And at that time, keep in mind, it was much harder for me to get the lights. I was very
Yeah.
stressed because now I do boom boom, like you helped me set everything up.
Yeah,
We did it
yeah.
in 5 minutes, but back then
Back
it
then
would
it
take
was
me
like,
like
okay,
an hour
where
to like,
should
okay,
I-
how about now? Let
yeah.
me go check the light. Let me do this. Let me do that. It took me a long time, so I was a little bit. It was a lot of work, and she said, "You know what? We should all get together and watch the video before we decide to post it or not."
Mhm.
And honestly, I didn't have a good vibe with her. And the idea of spending another afternoon with her watching this and her criticizing every single thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And I told my friend, you know what? If she wants to, you know her much better than, I mean, she's his childhood friend. Go ahead and do it with her. And she said, and I said, you watch it with her and you tell me. But I don't like this. I don't like that she's saying maybe she will say no and don't put it up. Because we did a lot of work. We invited her. We had, like she was a friend of my co-host at that time.
Especially
So-
that you had that rule already
Exactly.
set.
and I'm like, okay. No, actually, I did not. But after
Really?
that, I decided, you know what?
okay,
We need to
so
tell
she's-
people.
She's
Yeah,
the one that
she's
actually
the one
brought
that set up the rule.
Okay.
That helped me. And then I said, boom, boom, boom. And we didn't end up putting it up. And she said, no, I like it, but I just want to cut this and cut that. I said, you know what?
Because a lot of people
it.
see podcasts and usually like getting on Instagram lives and stuff for promo, so it needs to be in a good light.
Exactly. But this is
Whereas
not the podcast.
You brought her in to have a honest
Discussion.
discussion,
Exactly.
and
Honest
kind of
discussion.
like ask the questions that most people would ask. Like anyone you bring here, you try to understand, and it's kind of their role as well to kind of like defend
To defend and to tell.
and put what they're doing in the right
Exactly.
light, and kind of
Exactly.
like it's an opportunity for you to show your truth. If
Exactly.
you're not able to do it.
And I told her, like,
kind of
educate me, educate people. What do we do wrong in terms of nutrition? What do we? And when I started asking her, I like, this is a good topic that I really enjoy. So I started asking her like very specific questions, and she struggled a little bit. So she didn't expect that. And anyway, so this was the bad experience.
Mhm.
The good experience, I almost want to say, all the others were pretty good. I mean, sometimes you invite somebody and you think he is great and he does something great, a good craft. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
but he
But there's a letdown
it doesn't
somewhere.
translate.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate on the thing, because it's also my fault, because I don't know how to put the perspective in at the right angle. I don't know how to ask
Yeah.
the right questions, maybe. And
But it's a work
sometimes
in-
it's a work in progress. And
For
sometimes
you as well.
the guest takes the lead and he starts saying, well, first I was born in, who cares when you were born, man? Like, let's talk about this. And sometimes I don't impose myself enough, but I'm learning and I'm growing with the podcast, which is great. So that's a good thing that we don't have. I mean, we have views, and for me, it's like a lot of views, but we don't have like millions of views yet. So this is good because you grow at the same time with
Well,
the
you don't have
podcast.
any pressure as well to
Exactly.
like to perform and stuff, and you just grow and people get attached to you, to the environment,
Yeah.
to the way you handle subjects and stuff like that. So
So how
it's
about you?
really-
How about you? What is your experience with the podcast? Because you were hesitant to maybe start your own podcast, right?
I wanted to start a podcast. I just feel that me, it's more a struggle of knowing myself. I would do it, but I'm not in that place where I know I can afford to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've probably seen I can't
Yeah.
come to football anymore
Sure,
because I
sure.
don't have like
Set
control on my
schedule.
schedules and stuff like that. So I don't want to start something and not like give it the proper
Yeah, the respect that it deserves.
respect,
Yeah.
because it's something that's really dear to my heart. I wanted to do a podcast around entrepreneurship, different crafts that are linked to tech, digital, and stuff like that, because that's the field
Yeah,
in which I
yeah.
work, and it's also my passion, things like that. And I know there's a lot of people here in Morocco or even elsewhere that could benefit from small tips for
Of
this.
course, of
There's
course.
ways
Connections,
to do
etc. Yeah.
things way easier. You think, oh, I can't do this, I can do that. Well, here are the tools where anyone that can read or write can do stuff. So I wanted to have something like that, kind of like have the same model as you with Ça reste entre nous, or things like that, where we can bring people that from different fields that have the experience of
Yeah.
doing stuff,
Would help us set a company, or would help us
exactly,
like
like
get the
what are the
licenses,
struggles when you
etc.
open, I don't know, a new restaurant? What are the struggles that people don't see when you do
Yeah.
this? How do you do, I don't know, ad campaigns
How do you
online?
get loans for that? How do you
Exactly.
do this?
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this could be very interesting, especially for Morocco,
sure.
where I think there's not a lot of information. But I'm hoping that soon I'll be able to do that. It's something that I really want to do for sure.
Yeah.
And the experiences that I had with your podcasts, the first one where we did
Yeah, we did
another,
episode
I think
2,
we
I
did
think. Or episode 1 maybe.
one of
Yeah,
Another Day in
episode 1. Yeah,
Paradise,
yeah, yeah.
which was a great
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, it was definitely great.
The foutoir,
Yeah.
which is like hanging out with the
Yeah,
with
that's
the
also
guys,
really
and
cool.
like there's a lot of it's fun, so I'm thinking having something like this in your life can only bring positive.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
podcasts.
Podcast rules.
Good.
Yeah, podcasts are really cool. To close up,
Mhm.
I have a friend who started a podcast, and he was also on the verge to start a podcast. And I think I don't want to jump into conclusions, but I think I kind of like pushed him a little bit over the edge, because he saw me doing it and he said, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah. Yeah, I want to do a podcast too." So he did. He did a podcast about video games. I will share the link with him. He unfortunately only did one, because one, he's very busy. He works out a lot, and he also works a lot, and he's very busy. And he did one that I think is a good. It's a good thing. It's a good lesson for people. He did one, and his objective was really really high. He wanted to do a video game one, and he did the first episode, which was great, but he did one with it's too complicated. Like, it's too much work. It's too much work.
Well, you give a good example, because in the way you do things, etc. Because most people, especially in Morocco, people see podcasts a bit like radio.
Yeah,
So they want to have that structure, that stuff, and even the way you speak, you need to structure your sentences and be like part one, little like, okay,
Yeah,
this,
he prepared a text, and
when
he read the text.
and when you go a bit too deep into that, like, you kind of lose. It becomes like a course, and
you
like,
lose
don't
the
wanna,
fun
You
effect.
don't want to go to like a
class.
a classroom
Yeah.
where, okay, guys, here's how to do this. You should start with this.
Yeah.
You need to kind of like have that
Fun effect.
accessibility.
Yeah,
Like okay, so it's not that complicated. That's the message that needs to come. You just need to do this, 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 this. Not
Exactly.
be like, okay, beforehand, did you do this?
Yeah.
No. So
yeah.
why are you here?
No, I agree. I think I have a lot of respect for people who want to do like a very professional, very edited,
Of
like
course.
they write the text, they work on a text, they work on a podcast. They can maybe produce one podcast a month. But for me, I think consistency is key to succeed in podcast world. So you have to, when people get hooked, you need to keep feeding them. You cannot just like whenever you feel like it, like once every month. So do it. it needs to stay fun. It needs to be fun, especially at the beginning. You will work a lot and you will get zero reward. Like you will get
Yeah.
views, of course, but zero money. Like a few people, sometimes the views will go down. You don't understand why the product was good, the podcast
And
was good.
criticism.
Yeah, and criticism,
Like
of
it's
course.
hard to take
sometimes.
criticism when you work like 20
True.
hours to try to
True.
make it look good and nobody sees the work.
Yeah,
that you did.
exactly.
Whereas
exactly.
if you focus on bringing the value rather
Yeah.
than the structure on how
Exactly.
you're
Like
delivering.
keep it fun. That's
Yeah,
the
definitely.
podcast need to be fun. If it's not fun for you, you will end up like giving up. And this guy, he bought great equipment and he has everything cool. I hope he will keep going. I think he does a great job. If it were me, sorry, I would like do it in a more fun aspect and try to have a video every week
We
or
come
video.
back to what we said in the
Yeah.
very beginning. Just do.
Yeah,
Basically.
just keep doing it.
And actually, I might take that advice.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. So just a quick teaser before we stop. For our next podcast, we are going to go with the theme of multi-language and multilingual people. This is gonna be for April's Fool. So we are hoping to post this on April 1st.
Da.
This is gonna be really fun. I hope you stay tuned and thank you so much. I will see you next time. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, guys.